Here are two pieces, or two parts of a music composing project, or around musical, which was all made by writing notes on pieces of card and putting them in a hat, and randomly selecting them and using that to compose the music. And this became like or was meant as a musical version of automatic writing, and had the same implications of looking for this other kind of authorlessness, which is different than the radical Marxist one, which looks for engagements with the larger social and material systems that construct the subject of the artist, and instead looks for the subconscious and the accidental and the convulsive within a notion of the fractured kind of wholeness of the author, and a subversion or thwarting or breaking down of the kind of the willful acts of composing, where he's still working in this in some way and he sets up the game, but then he allows this kind of loss of control, which is fundamental. Which is a fundamental aspect of the Dadaist mode of working and the project. In the 60s, then John Cage made friends with and began to work with at this point much older Marcel Duchamp, and with this point was Amy had given up on making a retinal art or art that has to do with the eye, and only played chess. Actually, he was secretly making art on the side and maintained a false empty studio where he just played chess. And so him and John Cage began to play chess together, which is a perfect game because it has a few simple rules, which then allow for an infinite, range of possible moves and possible arrangements of pieces and strategies, and creative ways of using it. Apparently, Cage was horrified. Apparently, Duchamp was horrified that Cage was so bad at playing chess. But Cage explained that in his kind of Zen Buddhist way, that he just didn't see why anybody had to win and why you had to play the game and play with the purpose, and he was just moving the pieces around the board. So here we see moments of being together where the chessboard is wired up with the volume controls on the instruments of a small orchestra, I think. And so the musicians are playing while they're playing chess. And as they move the pieces around, each move they make affects the volume of the sound. And here we see the elaborate, all the helpers documenting this, the microphones and everything. But the game is allowed to be a randomizer or a disturbance, even in the in the relatively unstructured avant-garde music which I'm using. In John Cage's work, he was interested in more complicated systems of chance, and more elaborate systems in general. These are all examples of notations which are made in John Cage's later composition, Courses of the New School. And what these are supposedly musical scores which range from completely abstract markings which are made either not to be played at all or to be played whichever way the musician wanted to read them. In the case of the one in the middle, you were to play one side and then rotate it and play it again. And of course, it's more of a prompt than a rigorous notational system. But then also, like on the one in the case of the one here, many of them are actually quite simple circuit diagrams for hooking up electronic music installations and for showing how to arrange the devices. And with this we see an increasing interest and investment by Cage and his one group which he worked with in electronic music and technology in general, as well as in abstract and chance-based ordering systems like the I Ching here with the hexagrams, which you get to by randomly throwing sticks or flipping coins. And so if there's any overlap in these, it's that the foundational move of computation is within the systems of information machines are individual kind of units of information or meaning, which can be letters or stitches in a loom or numbers or hexagrams or words or musical notes. And then there's a system by which arranged in the form. And within that, as rigid as computers are, and as rigid as electronics are, are not only infinite possibilities of writing new codes and scripts and protocols. What's interesting is the language of these things was being made in this point. Most of them are metaphors which come from law. Or theater or performance choreography, and then also things like memory and logic, but sure about the brain. Also within these systems is not only the variation, of possibility for feedback and noise and error. Of course, not all of the new systems architects and engineers were interested in the form of technology being open, or in feedback and noise in the way Cage was. At this point, Fuller was making things like Montreal Expo, which is this kind of technological network utopian vision of a completely organized, homeostatic kind of world of chance, and the contingency of life is accounted for and absorbed in the feedback loops of the network. And here we see one of the domes in test by the Army as a lightweight structure here that could be used in Vietnam to make some architecture very quickly for open operations. And for him it was completely natural that his work be all about kind of order, and world peace, and kind of harmony, and also involved in the increasingly technocratic management and social control forces which were developed in the 60s. Even more involved in that was Nicholas Negroponte, who in some ways is kind of the one of the founders of what can be called tech art, at distinct from systems art. And so this is the architecture machine at MIT. She started on funding from DARPA, which is the Defense Industry Research Projects, the Defense Department research. It's the military funding. This militarization for funding basic research in the U.S. And what this was this, at that point, highly advanced computer system used for modeling urban and social space, so and the interrelations of infrastructure and human systems in cities, with the idea of managing efficiently how cities were built and run, and controlling the chaos, which was increasingly worried about in the late 60s, in the wake of the Watts riots, the riots in Harlem. And so in the grant which he wrote to get the money to build this, he argued that this could be used for riot control and for counterinsurgency in Vietnam. And so this is an art installation that went in a show on art and technology in the Jewish Museum, where You see a robot arm, which is run by a PCB architecture machine that arranges this.